I'm Sarah Jaeger. I'm a studio potter in Helena. I came here in 1985 originally to be a resident artist at the Archie Bray Foundation, and I thought I had never been to Montana. I thought I would be here for a year, and I wound up spending 2 years at the Bray and then deciding to set up a studio here in Helena. So I've been in Helena ever since, 26 years or something. My pots are made of porcelain, and they are completely utilitarian functional pots. I'm really dedicated to making pots that people can use. And some of them are pots that might be everyday pots, the coffee cup that you would pick up every morning, and then I make some larger serving pieces or things that would be more special occasion pieces, but kind of the whole gamut of everything in between those two ends of that spectrum. And I find I'm really interested in sort of what happens when people use pots. I'm interested in the fact that it can be an art form that you actually pick up and handle rather than just look at, so that you get to relate to it in a completely different way than art that hangs on the wall that is more removed from you. There's a sort of intimate connection between the work and the user when you're putting a cup to your lips or holding a bowl in your hands, that I think is a really special thing. And that keeps me engaged in that element of function. And I also like having the limitation that function offers, that it's sort of like a problem you have to solve, and that problem can trigger a lot of ideas in your work. Sometimes when you have no limits at all, it's much harder to figure out where to start than if you have some kind of boundaries that you have to bounce off against, and that function gives me that. And I love creating a sense of generosity and luxury and exuberance in my work, so that has a lot to do with my use of color, pattern, decoration. The forms can be simple and sturdy and comfortable to use and all of that, stand up in the dishwasher, all of that, but then with all the pattern and color decoration, that adds that sense of something special and luxurious and joyful that I think is a good thing to have, for people to have in their daily lives. Porcelain is a white clay. It's fired to a very high temperature, and it is when it's thin, it's translucent. So you get this, even when you aren't aware that the clay is translucent, you have this quality of light transmission that makes the glazes much brighter. There's a kind of a lustrous life to the glaze surface that you get from having it be over that clay body. Plus, porcelain is very hard and durable. So for functional pots, I know I'm biased, but for functional pots, I think it is the very best clay, because it doesn't chip easily. It really stands up to a lot of use. And we have that illusion, you think of fancy European porcelain that was so terribly thin and fragile. The only reason they could even make it that thin was because the clay itself is so strong. A lot of other clay bodies, if they were made that thin, wouldn't hold up at all. They'd crack like an eggshell. So it's a really tough clay with this very kind of precious feeling to it, and I like that contrast. It's glazes like glass, so it's a chemistry of melting and what happens when different minerals melt together, and it's there's definitely a science to it, but there is also a sort of alchemy that happens in the kiln that you can predict but not completely, which I think, it makes it not boring. It's what keeps it so interesting after all these years. Part of what keeps it so interesting. The making process is very solitary, so it's really fun to have events where then I get to share what I do with other people and get feedback and hear comments. That is all really useful, enjoyable, ego gratifying most of the time, because people are pretty nice, and And you know, to hear back, I mean, to get that feedback, it's really fun. And I sell a lot of work directly out of my studio, and then I ship work to galleries. But to have the direct contact with users is really a great thing.